Oh, wait, there's an issue with my camera. Give me a sec. Okay, POS by chat. I'll take them before the 6 minute. Probably one from opening, if not from closing. Yep, that's nothing much. I think everyone can hear me. Cool. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, there goes a saying in the English language. They say, you don't flog a dead horse. At the point in which you have to engage with actual bigotry in the status quo, we think that engaging with religion on their side of the house is more than futile, and we think we should abandon it in and of itself. Furthermore, we think inciting fear amongst those religions are fine. We've never been proud to propose. What am I going to tell you in today's debate? First, I'm going to give you a two-part model on what our world looks like, some framing as to what and how to contextualize the debate on our world, and one substantive argument and one principal argument on why the LGBTQ movement is better on a principle level to be viewed. And furthermore, I'm also going to tell you why that in the status quo, a reconciliation with religion is bad and has been futile and we should never adopt it. But first, two-part model coming from opening government. First, we will say that we will not even attempt to even engage reconciling with religion. We feel that at the point in which you actually engage with religion, we're actually engaging with actual bigotry on their side of the house, given that they don't even want to acknowledge us and they think that we should be stoned to, LGBTQ people should be stoned to death or go to hell. Whatever religion it is, we say that even in your best religion, they have beliefs which are against you. Even in your best religion, in your most liberal Western democracies, there exists religions who believe that that gay Christians or gay Muslims or gay people from wherever should be stoned to death or killed. Secondly, we will actively undermine the people on their side. What does undermining look like? Undermining essentially on our side looks like the mere existence, the mere not wanting to reconcile, because due to the sheer fact that the mere existence of LGBTQ people makes conservative Christians or conservative religionists, people who misinterpret religion, just get mad in general. So we say in that is more than warranted. What's the phrase? How does our world look like? Basically, in our world, we say that it's principally justified for the LGBTQ movement to thrive in the sense that, yeah, tangible change, it's not very accessible. In Saudi Arabia, you're definitely not going to get equal pay. So you might as well just be better on a principle level. We don't even want to talk to those people. We think that at the point in which you engage with a conversation with them, they're just going to actively undermine you and actively use their misinterpreted religion to actually guide you to the wrong side. Now, onto my arguments. Why is reconciliation bad, and why does the LGBTQ movement is better to thrive on a principle level? Note, panel, that in the status quo, there have been many attempts to actually engage with people who are in these kind of religions, like i.e. your Muslims, your Christians, whatever religion, there's no specific one. And the attempts at this have been futile. Essentially, what all of these people in these conservative or liberal religions tell you is, look, I don't hate you, I hate your sin. The mere fact that you are a person who is different from me, the mere fact that you are an LGBTQ person means that you are a sinner, you are a different person from me, you do not accept my ideologies, I do not think you deserve to live. At the point in which you engage with these kinds of doctrines that believe that you actually should die or you actually don't deserve to live, you do not get actual discourse. So whatever opposition wants to tell you about engaging with discourse, echo chambers are bad, all of that is irrelevant, right? At the point in which people think you deserve to die, that doctrine does not deserve to be engaged with. You do not deserve to live in that. Never been proud to propose on that point. But on the count of the model, right? progressive movements, like even in your liberalized democracies, we think that this debate takes place around the world, in the sense that even in your most progressive countries, there still exists discrimination in the status quo. Look at your UK. They have actively discriminated against LGBTQ teens by not wanting to give them hormone pills. Furthermore, in the US, there has been, I don't know, Donald Trump saying something racist or gay or something, anti-wala. Essentially, even in these kinds of countries, in most progressive countries, there still exists. But let's look at your developing states, of which have a more conservative outlet. Look, in these kinds of states, right, we think that not catering to conservatives may actually harm your tangible change, but that's not the metric panel that you should judge today's debate on. You don't get tangible change in these kinds of countries. So the better way to deal with bigotry, and we say actual bigotry, these religions are bigotry, is to actively undermine it, in the sense that, oh, you don't go and like, oh, please accept me, I'm LGBTQ. No, you actually undermine them, because at the point in which you engage with them, they don't want to talk to you. They're not going to accept you. So it is actively better to undermine them. What does undermining on our side of the house look like? Oh. Theo?
Look, religion is based on the interpreter. When it comes to like understanding of what religion is, oftentimes it's up to the interpreter. You can change religious scriptures, denotions. Why is that still a harm that you are unwilling to take that?
Because in the status quo, everyone who interprets religion misinterprets it, as you said. Insofar as you engage with these people who are misinterpreters of religion, you are not able to get any sort of change whatsoever on outside of the house, whether you actually undermine them. You just get to live your life, because at the end of the day, right, what you're going to tell you, panel, is that people who are LGBTQ, part of the movement, are actually people. They are people who deserve to live. They are people who are just normal, who just chose a different lifestyle. There's no reason for them to act. There is no reason for us to go and actively undermine them. There is no reason for us to actually go and engage with people who literally think that we should die just because of the sins we did. At the point in which you engage with bigotry, you never get anything. Political discourse or discourse within these kinds of movements don't need to happen, because at the end of the day, LGBTQ people and people of religious things just don't gel. And that's fine. A lot of people don't gel. I don't, for instance, like people who like durian. Yeah, no offense. And that's fine. I just don't need to engage with them. I don't need to actively go to a durian shop and say, oh, let me try durian so that I can get it better or what. Because at the end of the day, panel, look, we tell you that we gave you a two-part model and we gave you how the world looks like. We tell you that people from these religious doctrines literally think LGBTQ people should be stoned to death. And we think that engaging with them is far more futile. Losh will talk to you about why this is justified to undermine them. Never been proud to propose.
All right. Thank you, Prime Minister. I now invite the Leader of Opposition.
Hey, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Can I see you guys in the chat? One from closing. Ladies and gentlemen, opening government ran an uncomparative case. They ran a case where in a world where you literally get killed for being gay, And then they say that the principle is upheld when you literally tell your oppressors that we cannot gel together. If we are living in Saudi Arabia and literally everyone hates your existence, I'm unsure as to why undermining their religious faith and the faith that they obviously uphold to and is imposing upon you will lead to any principle win. If the context is you get killed, this is a shortcut to getting killed, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, the framing of this debate has to be in a world where both sides of the House can achieve some level of benefit. This has to be in a world in the global scale where it's not totally extreme, it's not totally secular, right? That is the comparative that is charitable. By virtue of being charitable, we are the better team. We have to take it over them. Right. Setup. Firstly, we're going to attempt to address it through reconciling. This looks like funding liberal interpretations of religion. It also looks like internal reforms, such as Pope Francis, and like funding those religious interpretations to go up the ranks and get those individuals on the ground. We're also supporting gay mosques and gay churches, for example, that already give a safe space for these individuals. The framing of this debate has to be, Gov has to defend a world where the community has to make that choice between religion and sexuality. The rhetoric that they use, saying that religion is absurd, also happens to the person who is a gay closeted Christian. That kid will now have to make that decision. Do I want to self-actualize or do I want to have religion? That is a comparative that they have to defend. This principle that they so-called want to say is comparatively worse off because the principal harm is symmetrical. Because if you fail the people that you protect, and you also feel the movement to lose this debate as well. If their side of the House claims the principle win, we're going to prove the principle as well. Right. First argument, how religion is actually reconcilable with the movement. And this is engaging with the total absurd accusation that opening government has, that religion is totally irreconcilable. Firstly, there's structural reform, right? And this is engaging with progressive interpretations. I'll take one later. Firstly, internal reforms work, right? And this is as a result of religion responding to popularity. In the selection of Pope Francis, they chose him deliberately because he had liberal interpretations of religion. And the reason why is because the church, the Vatican City, wanted to clean its image and optics, right? As a result of the African crisis with the AIDS epidemic that they are responsible for. They wanted to have something that is inclusive because people were opting out of Christianity as a result of it being unpopular and uncharitable to the global world. This is exactly why Pope Francis is more likely to want to enter. This is exactly true because it proves the incentive mechanisms of religious institutions that respond, and the foundation of religious institutions are the people who believe them, are the believers themselves, which exactly proves the internal reforms to a certain extent work. Secondly, liberal interpretations are actually pretty good at convincing people on the ground. And the reason why is because there's a reason why there are gay mosques and gay imams. This is because these people have interpretations of religion that is inclusive. And if you look at the scripture themselves, if you look at the Quran, for example, it says that you cannot lay on the same bed as a male. But this doesn't actually inherently prove that individuals are totally cannot gel with each other. The liberal interpretation of Islam says that you can actually be gay because this is just for non-consensual sex, right? That's the characterization to prove that liberal interpretations can actually convince people on the ground. Why is it likely that they will convince? It's because number one, the vast majority of people consume secular media in this world. This looks like having more social media, having more information, and the rise of globalization. This has led to an unparalleled, this has led to people accepting human rights on a scale way more. This is an inherent good thing because it means people are more open to these religious interpretations. What this proves is it disproves all of the opening government characterization, which means that it is unlikely that this world is going to be incredibly shunning you down when you come out as gay, which disproves their case entirely. Right? What is the comparative? Note that they haven't had a comparative in how undermining religion really looks like. We say that at a point in which when you undermine religion, it looks like you say that religion, you have to make that decision, right? This looks like if you are, the Christian church will say, if you are a gay Muslim or if you are a gay Christian, you are an apostle. You are a person that needs some wisdom, and we will do things like increase the rise of gay conversion therapy. We will limit the spread of secular media towards households. These are people who are stuck in echo chambers, but who are also closeted gays who want to self-actualize. This is a comparative that you have to defend. The principal win is actually on our side, the point in which when we have that kind of voice. The comparative here is that we have that counter narrative. So even if people in your community doesn't accept you, at least on a scale, we have those interpretations, which increases the likelihood of you getting hope in these times of need. Note that they haven't actually had a comparative, which means this comparative is already enough to take this case down. Secondly, communities will more often than not leave religion because they see that it's irreconcilable. It increases the line, which draws the line in the sand between us and them. That's exactly when all of the hate crimes that you claim exist happen on a scale way more because it is so now justifiable because they are now apostles. Before moving on to the second argument, I'll take a POI from closing.
Can you just clarify how this reconciliation or compromise looks like?
We're gonna find liberal interpretations of religion. We're going to have internal reforms. To a certain extent, we will make concessions, right? But we will never concede on things like human rights, things like accepting these individuals on the ground. I have all the mechanisms, and the concessions are only going to be policy concessions on in the long-term scale. I have proven incentive mechanism as to why people are likely to be receptive of the rhetoric of these gays as well. Right. Second argument, how government makes them choose, and this is a morally abhorrent choice. Two things that Gov will do. Gov will actively say that religion is secondary, or at worst, they will exclude these people from religion. For government mechanism to work, they have to defend a solid stance on religion, which means that the people who feel religion is important, people who are indoctrinated by their families, for example, people who genuinely find solace in religion, people who were introduced to religion first, will more often than not choose religion over sexuality. The harm is twofold. Firstly, these members will self-censor themselves. They will have to pick religion, and because they pick religion, they cannot ever be a gay Muslim. This is on comparative way worse, because stigma literally kills. That's when mental health problems, this is the breeding ground of all the issues that exist as a result of self-censorship. Secondly, they have to choose sexuality and give up their family. This is in the best case, and this comes at a huge personal cost to them. These are the comparatives that Gov is unwilling to defend. We have been more than charitable, even analyzing the context. That's why we're the better team we fix today.
All right, thank you, Leader of Opposition. I now invite the Deputy Prime Minister.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, give me a second. Starting up my timer. Oh, and I just want to say this is my first open quarterfinals with Jonathan. So thank you very much, Jonathan, for being my teammate. Okay. POIs in the chat, please, or you could turn on your camera if you'd like, and I will notice you. But otherwise, please do not interrupt me while I'm speaking. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Historically, panel, the fluidity of religion is the reason why no sort of change will ever be enough for the LGBTQ movement or any sort of minority movement in of itself. Because when you have such a fluid religion, what happens is you have such a fluid religion, despite that you have people on the ground who are still going to stick by the original scriptures or the scriptures in which they believe in, right? Let's say we are debating in the neutral zone and in the medium that side opposition wants to talk about, not in the extremes. Even then, you still have people who are the interpreters of those religions, right? Regardless of how you interpret it, regardless of the large liberal influences that you have over those interpretations, there will always be this sort of familiarity that they have with the most conservative sides of it. This means any sort of legislative change, any sort of reforms that we have seen within the past few years, as they want to talk about, has not nearly been enough for the LGBTQ movement, which is why we think that it's principally unjust for us to continue reconciling, because times have changed, right? What are the changes that have been afforded by the LGBTQ movement in the recent past? Number one, we can see the legalization of gay marriage within the UK. Even so, I think this is a really good example to show the fluidity of religion and why it doesn't work under their side as a comparative, right? recognized panel that regardless of the legalization of gay marriage under the, in the UK, what has happened is that there is still a disparity between the rights of gay people and heterosexual people after the legalization of gay marriage, right? There are still factions and religious factions that still hold on to their place, and they are refusing to recognize the LGBTQ movement, right? Let's say that this is a benefit that they get under their side. Even then, we still think that the LGBTQ movement shouldn't be the ones to have to reconcile with, rather they have to actively undermine it. What does active undermining look like under our side? This, Jonathan has already told you this. This means forgetting altogether about trying to reconcile or trying to rely on the fluidity of religion, rather pointing out what is wrong and what is so fundamentally wrong about it. Because when you have an active force against you, which is the religious majority, what you do in response is not to actually say, yes, we agree, or like we would like to have a discussion about it. Rather, since the times have changed right now, and the influence of the LGBTQ movement has already increased in its numbers, we think that this is especially an advantage to start undermining religion, or the things that religion leaders say that are contradicting to the human rights of these LGBTQ people, right? Before I go on to the bulk of my case, I want to address a few rebuttals. They told us that under their side we can get like internal reforms and whatnot. I just recognize, panel, that even if Pope Francis is a person that has been elected because of his more like liberal views and whatnot, this does not mean that this actually changes the view of the people on the ground, right? Let's say he does, let's say he is elected and this is because of the large liberal influences. This still does not mean that the LGBTQ people within Rome or the majority of those living in within like the neutral areas are going to have a better life, because none of the legislative change comes from that. What is our response to this, panel? In Jonathan's speech, we already told you that on the principle level, we want LGBTQ people to have solace in their ways, right? This means we do not want people like, for example, school children, young adults, people who are discovering their sexuality, to have to take the onerous burden of having to reconcile with this harmful rhetorics of religion, right? Because when you think about it, how it plays out is the LGBTQ movement reconciling with religion turns in a way that motivates or influences or creates an expectation for LGBTQ people to reconcile with them as well. So this means people on the ground, you and I, if we belong to the LGBTQ movement, having to reconcile with people who are actively against us, or having to reconcile with those discourse, because that is what is expected of us to continue with our lives. The comparative under our side is simple. We do not try to engage with this at all. Instead, we understand that what is fundamentally wrong with them, and we think that this is effective for a few reasons that I will get into, right? But the other rebuttals that I have over here are basically on the effectiveness of their principle, right? They think that people are more likely to accept human rights, or they are more likely to accept human rights because of the interpretation. We say that is unlikely, because even in Malaysia, for example, with the larger liberal movement, we still see that a lot of these discourse has to be watered down, and a lot of the changes that we want to see for our people has been watered down. It doesn't actually stay true to the aims of the people. This just means effectively like, oh, if we don't want to provide you with a death penalty, we'll just provide you with maybe a full life sentence. And we also have this argumentation about how these people have to make a choice between whether to stay in their religious sectors or like to be an LGBTQ person. Listen, you make that choice every single day that you're an LGBTQ person, okay? You have to make that choice, because in everyday life, you have to make a choice between expressing yourself, or being the person that your parents want you to be, or your religion expects you to be. Given the fact that people have already had to make this choice every single day of their lives, we don't think that it is necessarily a bad thing for them for them to see the movement undermining religion at all. This choice is already there. We're just making it explicitly clear. That's all that we're doing. And for the backlash part, they say that the backlash, that there will be like more changes for conversion therapy and whatnot. We say that backlash is not necessarily significant to the people on the ground, because when you have a movement that is behind you, and have a movement that is increasing in popularity and increasing in its significance, because now you have active undermining, that is obviously going to garner attention, right? This active undermining is obviously going to garner attention, and it's going to garner some sort of a momentum. So this creates even better awareness about this, because you're not watering down the movement at all. I'll take a POI from O.
that gay kid will no longer want to come out, because if he does come out, he will be considered as an apostle and as an enemy of that religion. Why is this a comparative that you're willing to justify?
Because this is a choice that is made on both sides, right? You don't remove this. What we're trying to say is that you at least have this, like this understanding that you are able to have a movement, or this movement understands what is wrong with the religion instead of trying to reconcile with it. Because as I've already said, there is an expectation for you to reconcile with this religious doctrines, insofar as your movement reconciles with it, right? Why is this then important for you to undermine it instead of having a neutral ground? When you have a neutral ground, it's super simple. You just have a central view where centrists and conservatives can actually create more backlash on you. We think it's much better the backlash on our side, where we are able to actually undermine religion in of itself instead of taking the back seat and having to take their attacks instead. We think that this creates a better world where LGBTQ people especially are able to rely on the fact that they have a bigger movement gathering bigger attention instead of having to reconcile with bigots for the rest of their life. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. I now invite Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Oh, cool. All right. All right. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, I think opening government deserves a 4th in this round. Reasons being is that number 1, they refuse to engage with the context given by my leader of opposition when it comes to religion having the ability for them to be able to have progressive connotations. That means interpretations that allow for more progressiveness. And this is important, and it was highlighted in Syakir's speech when it comes to Syakir explaining to you why religion is losing popularity in all over the world. That means in order for them to be able to retain followers, because this is the main intention of religious groups, they would have to be progressive leaders to allow for progressive connotations or progressive interpretations to be able to pass through. This means that when it comes to having that religious sect that is progressive for individuals like the LGBTQ movements, we are able to get that better on our side. This engages with the speech coming from Prime Minister when it comes to explaining why religious is a dead horse, it shouldn't be flogged, apparently, because they don't want to engage with religions at the end of the day. We feel like this is something that's uncharitable to the debate itself. They cannot take anything else than a 4th. They have to lose the debate today. But second, let's just talk about this argument that they have, that rebuttal that they have, right? Apparently to them, stereotypes still exist. They say that even if you have positive progressive connotations on your side as well, you would still have people having stereotypes. Look, I think stereotypes exist in both opposition and government's world. It doesn't change anything. But the comparative that's better on the side of opening opposition is that when it comes to you allowing for this conversation to happen between religious groups and conservatives, and LGBT groups, this means that you are able to have that pockets of society that can protect these individuals. This looks like being able to integrate religion and sexuality at the same time, versus in the world of government where you choose to not engage with religion at all, you choose to forget them. This means that the person who are retrenched in these particular groups are unable to voice out their concerns when it comes to them being LGBT at all, and they would have to hide in shadows because they are afraid to be victims of these stereotypes. In our world, sure, stereotype will still exist for these individuals, but at least these individuals know that they have protection, that they have groups that will protect their interests. That means they can just go to these groups and have their interests being protected. In your world, you leave them with no alternatives at all. This is far worse in a world where you claim yourself to be protectors of these LGBT interests at the end of the day, because you undermine the value of your movement themselves. Secondly, they talked about how reforms don't change views in other countries, right? If you live in a particular state, you don't have that particular ability for you to accept the changes in the scriptures, etc., etc. Look, here's the comparative, right? In our world, we give you that alternative. If the religion in your area doesn't allow for LGBT connotations to happen, that means there's an alternative somewhere that can exist for you. That means there's an outlet for you. These individuals will still feel hopeful because there exist religions that allow for you to be able to have religious connotations that allow you for you to be an LGBT person. And this is better because in their world, they have to defend these individuals do not have an outlet for them to be able to source themselves out as an LGBT person. They cannot win the debate at the end of the day, right? Let's talk about the arguments coming from Syakir that wasn't rebutted as well. Syakir mentioned to you about how this moral choice is very detrimental for these individuals to be made. They say that people make choice on a daily basis anyway. Correct. They make choices on a daily basis anyways because you don't help them as an LGBT movement. The reason why they are so confused when it comes to choosing between religion and their sexuality is because LGBT movements are just refusing to engage with the religion groups at the end of the day. They choose to not reconcile with religions. That's why these individuals are left in a state of confusion because they don't know whether they should prioritize the religions or not. We told you the reason why religion is important for these individuals is because they are first and foremost born into religious families. That means they made with religion first. Only later in their life, they've identified that their sexuality is towards the LGBT movements, towards the LGBT groups. This means that for these individuals, they cannot simply say, let's forget religion and fuck it. We do anything else. We don't care about religion because these individuals' religion for them is very important. It's the core value of these individuals. And these are the groups of individuals that you will left unprotected by the LGBT movements. This is why it's important for them to not make this moral choice. This is why we don't give them this moral choice. We let them choose to keep both religion and sexuality because these individuals can get it both at the same time, right? This is why it's very important. Let's talk about the arguments, the second argument then, right? So the second argument is about why undermining religion pisses off conservative, right? This is very important because when it comes to states that are probably conservative, you undermining them, like you going up to religious groups and telling them, hey, religion isn't important. I will go on with whatever that I want. Firstly, what's going to happen is that because you say that religion is less important, because these individuals feel like religion is important, they will have to defend it. These individuals are likely going to, number one, stop supporting the LGBT groups because they feel like this is impossible for them to be able to retain both sides. They are likely going to leave the LGBT movements because religion is that important to them. Second is that you lose out voters when it comes to religious individuals. They will never understand why is it that LGBTQ movements or people in the LGBT are actual individuals that can deserve the right at the end of the day, right? Even if Roe v. Wade happened, it's not going to be implemented in red states like Texas because because it's just unlikely to happen, right? Before I go on any further, yes, POI from closing, if there is any opening, go.
Okay, so you said your LO says that the debate takes place in progressive conservative states, right? How do you think they will accept? Why do you think they will accept liberal interpretation in those kind of places?
Look, my LO said the debate happens in a world where both sides, opening and opposition and government, can get benefits. This is the characterization of the debate. This doesn't happen in Saudi Arabia where you are unlikely to get any changes at all. But also, if you want to debate in Saudi Arabia, well, good luck, buddy. They get stoned to death. They don't get any changes happen on your side. And it's getting even worse if you undermine religion, right? Let's talk about why the comparative is better. On our side, we get people on the ground to be able to accept some gays, and discourse is going to be good. They say that it's bad because you have to have a watered down version of the LGBT movements, right? Look, watered down version is comparatively better in comparison because at least some individuals are willing to make concessions when it comes to agreeing why LGBT movements or LGBT people deserve some rights versus in their side of the house, they will never have this concession being made at all. Concessions are fine because we have a counter narrative for the discourse. This means that people are able to accept changes when it comes to individuals or policies when it comes to these people and why these people are likely going to be catered to in our side. Comparatively, they will not get anything on their side because people are just unwilling to engage with the LGBTQ movements because you undermine them and you make it far worse for this relationship between religion and sexuality. Or CG would have to defend then no exchange of information to happen because these individuals are just unwilling to cooperate with each other. This means that people are less likely going to understand what the LGBTQ movement actually stands for, and this is far worse on the side of the house. They would have to defend that in CG. Proudly oppose.
All right, thank you, Deputy Leader of Opposition. I now invite the Member of Government.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
I'll take POIs in the chat. For now, see him. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, there has been a lot of talk on how religion is wrong through undermining in this debate, and there has also been a lot of talk from OG on how reconciliation will not work. Understand that how we differ from OG today is that we will be telling you that their whole case is based on reconciliation not working, and the fight takes place in these rich first world countries. We tell you that today we take them at its best case. We take them when reconciliation does work, and we explain to you why it is harmful, assuming that it works, and that will make us ultimately beat out OG and OO. But first of all, let me make some clarifications, right? Let me tell you what undermining really means in this sense. Undermining means diminishing the importance of religion in society. It means actively not getting rid of the importance of religion in society and in legislation, right? So let me do some reframing also. Let me tell you that this debate should take place in the most vulnerable places, which is something that the opening half does not engage at all. We tell you that we are the first house to take the fight to these places where this matter actually matters matters largely, right? These places where it's the most conservative countries, where the places where religion is very prevalent in these countries. We tell you that we take the fight to these places, right? And we say that the fight should happen in these places as it will. As we can better protect the more vulnerable people, right? Understand that OG never pushed the comparative on why undermining is the better way and how harmful reconciliation is, which I will do later on in my speech. But first of all, some responses to OO, right? Understand that OO's entire case works on the assumption that for concession to exist and for compromise to follow it, right? Your stance stands assuming that concession on both sides are unproblematic and quick. We tell you that concessions are not fine in this case. And to clarify, saying that undermining religion doesn't mean that religion is wrong. It's that we are undermining the importance of religion to these parties, right? And also, you don't prove to us how changing views from the Pope or from these religious leaders lead to change in these small conservative religious bubbles, right? We say that backlash will exist, an immense amount of backlash will exist, and that you say, how can you assume that these people will not hold on to something that they've held on for so long traditionally and culturally, right? And even if you prove the incentive structure of religious organizations, how can you convince religious communities concede their beliefs that they've held on for so long, for so many decades, right? Understand the decentralization of religion makes religious beliefs more radical, and this will be explained by my next speaker. So let me get into my main arguments and my main three extensions for the day. I'll be telling you why it's impractical for compromise in this sense. I'll be telling you why reconciliation is seen as a West and more liberal agenda. And I'll be telling you why there is a need for circular legislation. First of all, why is it impractical for compromise, right? We tell you that compromisation will not protect the most vulnerable people, which is who we are aiming to protect today. So how does this compromise look like? The compromise on the side of the LGBTQ is to ditch trans people as a whole, right? Because if you expect concession, they have to ditch the people that they are protecting in the first place, because you need to have compromise, right? And compromise on the religion side is to sacrifice purity and change. which is going to take decades, which nobody has engaged in this debate. So this goes against the entire stance of the LGBTQ if they want to compromise them in the first place because they are unable to protect the people that are most vulnerable. So understand that my second level analysis comes here, which is the principle of proximity and reliance. Understand that these communities, the LGBTQ communities, have the obligation and have the burden to protect the people that so formed them in the first place, right? Understand that these communities are the only source of reliance and safety for trans people. They act as a support group for people, as how there are support groups for military veterans, right? It's just like how the state has obligation on their citizens, right? We say that on our side, we better protect these most vulnerable people and these people who are suffering the most harm. People who exist, trans people or people who are gay that exist in countries like Saudi Arabia, these places where legislation and religion exist as one. And we tell you that there is a moral responsibility for them as they are within their proximity. This is why they have to protect the people that rely on them so much, because these are the people that only they rely on. Which brings me to my second extension today. Why reconciliation is seen as a Western and liberal agenda, right? So understand that what do these spaces look like? What I've explained before in my reframing, these spaces are conservative bubbles, right? It's where religion and government has not split and they are looked as one. There is no circular legislation. These spaces are Islamic countries, places where the Sharia law is very prevalent, right? So first of all, reconciliation would be splitting them up more harmfully as compared to what our side can do. We are still splitting them up, but less harmfully. Understand that reconciliation is a more defensive action. Compromise on the religion side means sacrificing purity, right? This is what leads to more hate crimes and more danger, right? Because there is more backlash by extremists, people who very much believe that reconciliation is a bad thing. These are the main characters that will cause more harm. These are the main characters that are more radical and will create the most backlash. So how do we get rid of this harm? We say that undermining the importance of religion to create a circular legislation, that is the most important part. As we are not removing the purity, we are not compromising the purity of religion, but we are removing the importance of it. Because understand that these radicals, right, they do not care if other people think that their religion is more important. We say that they care more if you think that their religion is more that their religion is unpure. Understand that why is it impractical on the sense is that it's going to take decades and take a long time for you to shift religion as a whole, to shift 180 degrees around. We say that will cause more harm. Because understand that purity is the most important part for extremists, right? Our house will cause less harm. As these people, what I've explained to you, they do not care if people think that their religion is less important. We say that they care more if people think that religion is unpure because they want to protect their religion. These extremists want to protect their religion at the highest point. So comparatively, we tell you that pushing for legislative change is more important than compromise in this sense. So let me explain to you why comparatively undermining is the more effective way, right? Because there is a need for circular legislation, which is my third extension today. We say that removing the importance of religion in legislation, not only can you push for legislative change, which is what the LGBTQ communities need to achieve which is their end goal, which is saying that if you remove religion from legislation, like taking away the Sharia law and stuff like that, you say that religion does not equal government in this sense. You must take it out to push for legislative change. If not, there's no use because there will be no reform, and that's not how you change perceptions. We say that taking away religion is the only way that you can change perceptions in society, and that is through getting legislative change in. And this is why undermining is the more undermining is the more effective way, and it does not cause more harm as when you do reconciliation. Because understand, I've proven to you 3 extensions today why it's impractical, why is there a need for circular legislation, and why reconciliation is seen as a more liberal agenda, right? We tell you why these things are more harmful. We tell you why undermining these things does not mean that religion is wrong, and how our side better protects the more vulnerable people brought to propose.
All right, thank you, member of government. I now invite member of opposition.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. PYs in the chat. If I don't take one by the 5th minute, please verbally say it or just turn on your camera and raise your hand. All right. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. It's very funny that suddenly CG wants to take, well, first they want to say that they want to debate in a context where changes can actually happen, but a substantive amount of their analysis happens in places that are very, very much conservative, like Saudi Arabia. First and foremost, the part that at the end of his speech really triggers me the most when he says that
they're impacting to their world is that they want to get circular legislative change in which they can get policies that can better cater towards LGBTQ. You tell me how you're going to undermine the religion of Islam, and then you're going to go to MPS and then you say, MPS, please give me legislative change. I don't see how that's going to happen under your world. In fact, they already shoot themselves in the foot if they want to do such policies in the, to begin with. On top of that, you're literally going to get stoned to death or probably just get lynched in the public streets. This is one, that is number one, you're going to damage the movement as a whole. But number two, you're going to damage the followers of the members who probably didn't consent to what the movement was trying to do in the first place. Now, before I move on to my other parts of rebuttal, two extensions I'll bring in today. Firstly, I'm going to co-opt the benefits of opening opposition by saying the rights to profess religion, because we cannot say that they have liberal interpretations without answering the question of why is it that LGBT people should have religion in the first place. But number two, I'm going to give an extension of how discourse is one that is much more probable if you can get that circular change of what closing government wants to begin with. Now, going on to my rebuttals. First and foremost, what the first speaker from government said is literally, I can summarize into two sentences. Religion, bad, people do need to follow. That's all. And then the mechanism is, we don't want to engage with them at all. I don't see how you're going to benefit your people at the end of the day. In fact, I think you're just going to harm them even more. But secondly, on the second speaker, okay, some cases that I can see for a bit, but the problem here is one that is very much harmful, because they make a little inconsistency when they say that you want to basically distance yourself from religion, but you still want people to profess the religion, and somehow the movement is going to follow you. You should have taken a very harder stance in which you want to say that, okay, the movement and the followers itself will not opt into any religion at all whatsoever. Then only you can co-opt your benefits to begin with. Now, going on to what closing government said, first and foremost, the way they want to say undermining is basically getting rid of the importance of religion. I don't see how that's going to happen. If, let's say, for example, there's a Malay fellow in front of you, or like any person who's conservative in front of you, telling you that your life means nothing, I don't see how, okay, I'm just going to say probably my religion doesn't matter anyways. I don't see how that's basically going to give you any changes, because they probably think the same way as well. What they're trying to do to you is push that narrative of you should have the religion to begin with. What you should have defended under your world is probably attacking back, because the motion literally says within conflicts of in regards to religion. That's what undermining works. Undermining means the essence of just basically saying that religion doesn't mean anything. You should have said that instead. Other than that, I don't really understand why this compromisation is very much harmful, in which I don't see any substantive to it. They make it an assertion to combat OO's, but I think OO's point still stand, in which they attack both opening government and opening government to begin with. I don't see how this is going to take OO's points in general. But last but not least, they say that basically when you reconcile, you would engage with radicals. Look, we say that we're going to make the debate in a world where actual progressive change can happen. We don't want to take any very conservative countries at all. Like Malaysia, we're not going to take that, because no way in hell that's going to happen. Now, going on to my extension. First and foremost, the rights to profess religion. Number one, the reason why these people want to profess religions to begin with is because they want a sense of belonging to begin with. This means that they have self-worth when they feel like they can literally reciprocate with the beliefs of a religion. They take the good parts of the religion, in which they say that they can literally uphold and is in line with what they're principally standing for, right? We say that it's also important for them to have religion, and why they choose a religion to begin with is because of the fact that they believe that at the worst point of their life, God is there with you, and God will always love you regardless of who you are. This means that religion is used as a safeguard for these gay people to begin with, at the point where you are literally being attacked by these radicals that you so far want to defend to begin with, right? This is very much important, because although it's true that there are scriptures that say the story of Sodomites, which probably perpetuates the hate for gay people, right? But it's because of the liberal interpretations that exist within society nowadays, that is why these people can opt to and can coexist with religion without sacrificing the other one to begin with, right? What are the impacts to this? We say that the most important impact that they have is empowerment in general, because they believe that God loves them for who they are. Although everyone else around you says that your life doesn't mean shit, God is still with you, and God loves you regardless of who you are, and regardless of where you stand, regardless of who you're sleeping with. This is very much important panel that you need to know. Then we can co-opt the benefits of how liberal interpretation one is much more beneficial under our world. What is the comparative and what is the worst case from government side, right? Because we say that you literally, as a movement, didn't do these decisions of every single being, of every single member of your community to begin with, right? The question I wanted to ask this closing government just now was, what about people, what about gay people who still wants to profess religion? Are you willing to sacrifice that members themselves? If you were to go hard side, you have to say, yes, you want to sacrifice themselves. The harms to this is that not only, because this is like a lesser than two evils kind of analysis, status quo is already bad because you're basically being like lynched because of the way who you are. But what you're doing under your world is they literally don't do anything apart from just being gay and professing into a certain religion. They go and they literally get attacked because of the way you're undermining religion to begin with. I'll take a POI from whoever is POI in me.
You say that the debate takes place in your liberal worlds, right? But then aren't you knifing OO since they say that the debate takes in the whole world?
You're the one who says you're debating in the whole world. Opposition has been trying to say we're debating in a world that's probable change can happen to begin with. You're the one who started the Saudi Arabia thing to begin with. Moving on to my extension of discourse. Now, the reason why discourse is so important is because what you're doing at the point where you're undermining religion is you're creating echo chambers that separates and doesn't coexist with each other. This is a problem that has been having on for centuries now, to the point that it became the cause of why such changes for gay people came in late to begin with. We say at this point, it's very much important for you to basically coexist and try to reconcile with each other, because we say that you're actively engaging. What in the worst instances that we admit, sure, people will get hurt, in which that they probably listen to the validation of people who say that your life doesn't mean shit. But at the end of the day, the harms will trickle down to a lot of things, because not only the person that you try to convince their minds is going to benefit from your conversations, the people around you who probably are going to be the fence-sitters can actually be potential allies to you. And the reason why this is so much probable is because of how right now we're in a generation of where we have like Generation Z anywhere, right? Literally TikTok posts a lot of human rights issue, apart from just watching the content of like some fella cooking some sashimi at 3 a.m., right? This is why it's important, because literally everywhere the surrounding around you revolves around the fact that human rights and awareness exist in general. That's why you see in Sunway, there are some Malay fellas who probably support what gay people are trying to stand for. This is the kind of progressiveness that we can see under our world. What is the comparative then? Politicians are more in line to basically advocate for you, because if you basically undermine religion, politicians have no incentive to advocate for you because it's going to look bad for them. Thank you.
All right, thank you, member of opposition. I now invite government whip.
Can you see me? How come I can't see myself?
Yes, you're visible and audible.
Oh, I can see myself now. Okay, just give me a second. I'll take POIs in the chat, he, him pronouns. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. CO says that gay people, LGBT community, they're going to find solace in religion and God. I have a reason to believe that maybe insofar as religion has been the weapon that has been used to beat them down, I don't think this is the case, unless closing opposition argues that they are extreme masochists, which I don't think is going to come up in this debate. What are the metrics at which this debate should be judged, panel? The first thing is protecting the most vulnerable, because I think that is the general principle that progressive politics and progressive movements, the LGBT movement included, runs by. But secondly, getting secular legislation, because that is the only way that we can have progressive practical outcomes happening within these countries, insofar as the legislation is used to systematically demonize and ostracize people from this community. Those are two things that both opposition teams fail to engage with. But let me first start with CO. The first thing they said is you cannot undermine religion in conservative countries. I think the response to this is quite simple. We didn't say it is something that is going to be so easy to do that we can do it now. But I say that it is the easier way to do it. It is so much easier than trying to get concessions from these conservative countries, than trying to get them to change their religious purity for us. Because insofar as they somehow give some weird analysis as to why institutions want to get more people, I think that analysis exists outside of this debate. Because the reasoning they gave from opening opposition actually is that, the Pope wants more people to join Christianity. They want more people to feel included in Christianity. That exists when the political scene and the social scene is something that moves towards the left. That is what happens when you have secular legislation. So I think that is the argument that we can actually flip and co-opt on the government side. But secondly, when they say that it is something that is unlikely to happen, we just told you that it is relatively and comparatively easier to happen insofar as the driving principle in these religious communities is going to be purity. I think that is something that we don't want to try and take away from them if we don't want to have some huge escalation happening. They say concessions are not bad and it's just an assertion. I think Justin spent a significant time of his speech explaining why concessions that are likely going to be given from the LGBT community is likely going to result in things like TERFs, where people are like going to sacrifice the validity that transgender people have or any sort of minority sexualities within this movement so that the lesbians and the gays can have some sort of acceptance. I think this is inherently bad for two reasons that Justin gave you. The first one being the vulnerability principle. Because these transgender people have nowhere else to turn to, their lives are significantly worse on your side. And the thing is, they rely on the LGBT movement. So the LGBT movement has that significant obligation, principal obligation to help these people. That is something that they didn't engage with. And that is something that's very likely going to happen on their side. The last thing we heard is that religion is something that is inherently good. I think even though there might be liberal interpretations of religion that could be good, I think these interpretations are things that are very small in number and are ostracized from the main center of what religion is. So I don't think that this is something that you can argue exists in all circumstances, as it is something that is inaccessible for most of the people within these communities. And I don't think that religion is going to help these people derive some sort of hope and happiness insofar as the weapon that is used to beat them down on a daily basis. Why do we then beat opening opposition? The first thing they come and say, telling people we cannot reconcile sends a bad message. But I think in status quo, the norm that these religious people have already is that we cannot reconcile, because they see gay people as something that is outside of this movement. They see these two things as separate things. So I don't think that we are actively harming the perception that people have. So I don't see their argument accruing that there's going to be more radicalization on our side. But it is on your side that you make it worse insofar as you are challenging the purity of religion. That was not engaged with by any opposition team. They gave the incentive mechanism of religious organizations. I still see this as things that are derived from the social atmosphere of these countries, not by the movement that you're doing. I don't see why it is you that are affecting this change in what the religious organizations see. But also, I think you didn't engage with what is, I'll take you in a minute. You didn't engage with the decentralization of religion. Because when these people feel that the religious organizations are not things that are fighting for them, it is likely that they are going to turn to their cultural and religious communities that are localized. And these communities are likely going to be more and more radical because they are not like attributed to a certain scripture. They're not as attributed to the like mainstream religion. They are going to be more harmful. They are the ones that are going to commit hate crimes and like stoning these LGBT communities. Concessions, I think we really proved the concessions argument based on the vulnerability principle and trans erasure. But lastly, on intersectionality, which is like the only positive material that they have left, I think we can let them choose what they want, because insofar that even if you succeed on your side, the only thing that you can get is some impure form of religion and some impure form of the LGBT identity. So you're making them live in some Frankenstein identity between these two impure things. I think it's better off letting them choose between one or the other if it's pure. Even at our worst case, we win that exchange. What was our extension? In the first extension, we gave you, oh wait, before that, I'll take you from CEO.
You do know that a lot of people in power are align themselves with religion. If you undermine them, how are they going to listen to you?
Okay, so if they're they're so associated with religion and they're so believed in what their consistent religion is, you didn't prove to us why you are going to be likely to succeed on your side. We proved to you why it's comparatively easier for us to succeed, not that it is something that is easy. In every case, this is going to be something that is hard. Just prove to me why it's comparatively easier, then you can try and take this argument. I think we proved to you, Justin proved to you a few things. Why the vulnerability principle makes sure that we must protect the people that are the most disenfranchised, the people who are going to be traded off on their side through concessions. We proved to you why radicalization is more likely to happen when you attempt to have this reconciliation. And even if reconciliation works, the radicalization that's going to happen is going to affect these people who have been erased and affect people who have been traded off even more. I'll take O.
You put concessions on us, but in creation of any legislation, you will always have to concede some values through forced trading and bartering. The motion says in addressing religious conflicts, why is your legislative change exclusive then?
Okay, you need to understand that the practical things we can have concessions there, but the identity of the LGBT movement cannot be considered. Insofar as you want to integrate the LGBT movement inside of religion, you would have to concede the identity that the LGBT movement fights for. You would have to concede helping these trans people as a whole. That is something that is like exclusive harm on your side. You cannot push it to us. We also gave you an extension as to why secular legislation is something that is inherently something that is we need in these countries and something that's unlikely to happen on your side. Because insofar as in your side, you still have the like the importance of religion is still really big. Religion will still have a huge influence as to what is going to be legislation, what is going to be policies. Once we, if we do like manage to do it at the end, the secular legislation is the only thing that is going to make it so that there's no more systemic harms given to these disenfranchised people. They are not systemically harmed by the court systems. They're not systemically harmed by like the prison systems. But why way over OG? I think it's very simple. OG takes the worst case that these reconciliations don't happen at all. Justin engages with their best case, showing that why successful reconciliations are things that are bad because of these types of erasure and because of purity. But lastly, we also frame this debate where it needs to happen, where the people who are the most disenfranchised are discussed. I think that is what both opening teams miss, leaving this to a closing debate and leaving this debate to closing government. Thank you.